Hi, I'm Chef Gail Sokol and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're making a cold brew tiramisu and it's perfect for a large crowd. It's going to make a 9 by 13 inch pan. You can decrease it, you can increase it, you can give tiramisu to everybody that you want, and it's super easy to make. You can buy your ladyfingers. I like to make my ladyfingers. And I made these and actually froze them, and now I'm going to use them for my tiramisu. I have a wonderful video on how to make homemade ladyfingers. It's so much fun to make them because they're like little sponge cakes. And the first thing you need to do with tiramisu is I'm preparing my pan. So I have a nice pan, 9 by 13. You can use any size you want. This one is a good size tiramisu, so I am putting it in this rectangular pan. I've sprayed it with nonstick cooking spray, and I'm going to set it aside. Now we want to make our cold brew soaking liquid that we're going to soak our ladyfingers in. I have 1 3/4 cups of cold brew coffee. This can be homemade, this can be store-bought, and it can even be just cold coffee. Anything you want. It can even be instant coffee, or instant espresso, or regular espresso, it doesn't matter. I also have 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, and I put it in a relatively wide flat pan so that my ladyfingers can go in. I'm going to pour it in slowly, and I like to add a little something extra. So I'm putting 3 tablespoons of Kahlua. Kahlua, coffee liqueur. I'm going to put that right in there. That's going to really soak up the flavor for those ladyfingers. And when you feel that your sugar's dissolved, just stop whisking and set it aside. We're getting all our mise en place ready, so we're ready to go once our custard or our filling is ready to go. I've also taken 2 teaspoons of unflavored gelatin and combined it with 2 tablespoons of cold water. And I've let that bloom. So originally it was liquidy, now it's not. All right, so the gelatin, unflavored gelatin, you have to let it bloom. It absorbs the water and softens, and almost looks like a jellyfish. We're going to add that to our hot custard and it'll melt right down. This will just give a little structure to our tiramisu. Put that aside. Now we get to our custard. So I have about 1.5 inches of water at a simmer on my hot plate. I have, let me make sure that I have this straight. I have 2/3 cup of granulated sugar. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of water to this. And I have 6 egg yolks, all right, 6 egg yolks, no whites. And I'm going to start mixing this before I put it over my simmering water. This is the basis for our custard because yolks are a great base for a custard. And what we want is eventually, over this simmering water, I'm going to put the pot. It's never touching the water. And this is a heat-proof bowl. Make sure it's heat-proof. This is Pyrex, so it should not crack or break. Stainless steel works great too. And I'm just going to keep mixing and whisking. And it's going to take about 5 or 6 minutes before our custard is thickened. It's going to turn pale yellow. And when I drop my whisk down, it's going to form what's known as a ribbon. So that means that our egg yolks have thickened enough, because remember, over water, over hot water especially, eggs, yolks thicken. They actually are great thickening agents for many, many things. So I'm going to keep mixing this and getting my muscles some exercise, and I'll see you back in a little bit. So this has been moving around, and I have been whisking my custard mixture for about 5, 6, 7 minutes, depending on how hot your burner is. You never want this to boil. What you're trying to do is thicken this yolks so that you can see the path that this whisk is forming. It actually makes a path so that when you lift it up, it almost forms like a ribbon when it goes down. So I think we are done with this part. I'm going to take my beautiful gelatin and get that in there. And I'm going to let that melt in there. And when that melts, I'm going to set it aside for a few minutes. And then it's time to make our whipped topping. So I let my custard cool a little bit because I'm going to add whipped cream to it with mascarpone, which is typical for tiramisu. So I've let this cool down a little bit. We don't want it to get too cold because it's got gelatin in it and it will set. But I put it in a big bowl because it's easier to fold in whipped cream when I do that. All right, so I have 1.5 pounds of mascarpone cheese. That's Italian cream cheese. It's very rich, and you need 1.5 pounds. And then I'm going to add 3 cups of heavy cream very slowly. And I've let the mascarpone come to room temperature because if it's really cold, it won't whip very nicely with that heavy cream. All right. So I'm going to put my guard on. I'm going to use my whip attachment, and then I'm going to cover the machine. First, I'm going to mix it on low speed just to get that mascarpone blended in because it's really a lot thicker than the heavy cream. The heavy cream is a lot less viscous. So just going to let that mix in a little bit on low speed. And then I'm going to take, you know my trick, right? Chef Gail's trick. I take a clean kitchen towel and I put it over my mixer so it doesn't fling all over my kitchen. And then I go to warp speed. And you really want this to get soft to stiff peaks because it's going to thin out a little once we add it to our custard. And it shouldn't take too long because remember we have that mascarpone. It's just about there. It's just about there. It's gorgeous. All right, hold on. This is so exciting. This is so exciting. Look at this. Oh yeah, look at this. Look at that. So we're gonna put this down. And now the fun, we start layering. Okay? But before we do, I want to add my whipped cream and my mascarpone into my custard. You always put lighter, whatever you have, it's lighter down on top of the heavy batter, whatever it is, whether it's whipped cream, whether it's actually a sponge cake batter, whatever it is. All right, we have all our beautiful mise en place ready, and now I'm going to just fold this in. All right, and this is going to lighten up our custard with our egg yolks. Did you know tiramisu means pick me up in Italian? And I think I know why, because there's a lot of coffee in it. So if you need a pick me up, serve tiramisu. It is yummy. And look how fluffy this is. Oh, it's so good. Fluffy and light, and just fold it in. Don't mix it in, fold it in. All right. And when you don't see that many streaks of yellow from your yolks, you are ready to layer and soak these luscious lady fingers in our Kahlua coffee mixture, cold brew mixture. I think we're ready. All right, so let's set up our station here. And I actually have a measuring cup so I can actually scoop and get everything ready. I'm going to go get an offset too. That'll help you smooth it out. So what I'm doing now is I've got my beautiful Kahlua coffee. So much to do, and I've got these luscious lady fingers, and I'm just going to soak them long enough that they can soak up without softening too much, and I'm going to lay them down. All right, you want them to get that flavor of that coffee without falling apart. You don't want them to fall apart. Just before they fall apart, pull them out. So it'll be maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 seconds. Feel them. If they feel, depending on the type of lady finger, if you make your own, they're going to be softer. They're going to be like a little sponge cake. All right. You don't want mush. Mush is not good. It would be delicious mush, but you don't want mush. And then you're going to fit them in. So if they don't fit in perfectly, you can make them fit because once they're soft, you can actually sort of mush them in. So you can actually see inside. You see that? And the ones that you buy in the store, Some of them are firmer and harder and crunchier, so they'll need longer soaking times. All right. Now, I figured this would be about 12 to 15. Oh, I can smell the Kahlua. Yum. And if you can't fit it in perfectly into your pan, break them and make them fit. Okay. And then we're going to layer our custard on and then do this again, because why not? Oh, it's so good. And this can be in the fridge for several hours, because the longer it sits in the fridge, even up to a couple of days, it will be delicious. Delicious. And I've put these in here with pieces of wax paper. All right. That one's a big sucker, so we're going to have to squish you a little bit to get you in here. Squish. Okay. Now I'm going to take my measuring cup and get a little bit, probably about a third of this. I'm going to put that in there. All right. And I'm going to spread it. Spread it with my offset. Okay. Oh, so good. So good. And you can smell the Kahlua, you can smell the coffee. Absolutely delicious. I'm going to just add a little touch to cover there. All right. And we're going to make a layer 2 times. So we're going to have 3 layers of our lady fingers. You want to have about 3 layers. If you want to do a few more, a few less, do whatever you want, because you can make this tiramisu into anything you want. It's so good. And you do want them to be a little wet, so don't get upset if they're a little squishy. They're supposed to be squishy because they're loaded with good stuff. Kahlua and coffee and cold brew and yum, 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 yum. Oh, yum. See, I left it in probably about 5 seconds and it got a little softer than I would have liked, so keep rotating it. But you want to soak up as much coffee as you can. That's the name of the game, baby. All right. So good. This is a perfect dessert if you really want to feed a crowd and you just want to scoop it out. I added the gelatin because I like to get a cleaner slice. And if you don't want to or care about getting a cleaner slice, just scoop it. I've even made tiramisus frozen before too. They're really good that way too. And if you want to take them out of your freezer, if you've made them ahead, and let them get a little bit firm, like a little bit stale, and don't cover them, they'll actually hold up better in your coffee solution. All right. All right. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to make this layer and one more. See you back in a minute. So I've made 3 layers of lady fingers and the whipped topping, ending with the whipped topping. And look how gorgeous it looks, but we're not done yet. So typically a tiramisu, this pick-me-up, has grated chocolate or even sifted unsweetened cocoa powder on top. We're going to go one step further. We're taking chocolate-covered coffee beans, which I love, and I put them through a food processor, or you can even hand chop them, and I'm going to sprinkle them over. Oh, look how pretty that looks. Yum, yum, yum. So you just get a slight crunch and another pick-me-up because you're going to get a lot of that beautiful coffee flavor from those beans. I took about a half a cup and put it through the food processor, but it's way too much. So I can sprinkle that on my ice cream for another time. So I would do maybe a quarter of a cup, as much as you'd like. And if you want a little crunch between layers, you can even do it for each layer. Some people don't like it as crunchy as I do, or as coffee beany as I do. But there you have it. Your gorgeous, gorgeous cold brew tiramisu. And this is something that you're going to want to let sit in your refrigerator for 6 to 8 hours overnight. It'll get better and better. So I hope you become a subscriber. Make this cold brew tiramisu. You're going to love it. Until next time.